God. You just killed James Bond.
Is that who it was? Well, it just proves no one's indestructible.
You don't kill James Bond and sit around waiting for the cops to arrive.
The diamonds are forever. They are all I need to please me. They can stimulate and tease me. They won't leave in the night. I've no fear that they might desert me. Diamonds are forever. Fold one up and then caress it. Touch it, shoot and undress it.
Welcome to the first official episode of the Martini Police. This is our James Bond podcast. This is technically the second one that we've done. We actually recorded one a week earlier for the Living Daylights, but it was kind of crazy. For anybody listening, this is our little podcast that we're making for ourselves and our friends and anybody else who wants to listen while we're all stuck inside in quarantine for however long that takes, trying to watch all the Bond movies for whatever reason. So this week we are here with me. I'm Alex, and there's you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm John. I've seen all of 3 James Bond movies, 2 of which were Living Daylights and Diamonds Are Forever.
Great intro.
I'll go next here. Okay.
Terrible. Oh my gosh.
That's what the edit room is for. I'm Scott. I think I've seen a good number of the James Bond films. There's probably a handful that I haven't seen. Some of the ones I've seen I've slept through, but I've been there for most of them.
Can you throw it on over to me?
And I think we also have on the line, is that Justin?
It indeed is. So to introduce myself, I'm Justin. I guess what I bring to the table is that I read all the books.
Which is interesting because most people haven't read the books. You've read more of the books and seen the movies, and I feel like that's not like a normal thing.
I've only seen Connery ones and Daniel Craig ones.
You haven't seen any Roger Moore James Bond movies?
Oh no, I haven't seen Roger Moore ones. No, I haven't.
Cool. Well, I'm Alex, and I really like James Bond. I've been watching the movies since I was a kid. I've read a few of the books, but yeah, this is kind of, I think like you, Scott, I remember when there was the hockey lockout and CBC would play a James Bond movie every weekend. Do you remember this? I don't know if you were in Canada for this, but it was maybe like in 4th or 5th grade.
I don't remember them doing the James Bond movies, but I remember them doing the movie night in Canada thing.
I think there was a summer where they just played a James Bond movie every week. And kind of like you, I've seen them all when I was a kid, but I definitely slept through most of them because these older movies are like really not that interesting for kids to watch.
So what one are we talking about today then?
So this week we're starting with probably the strangest. Well, okay, like I said, we're not starting. We've already done one, and I feel like last week's episode we can release later as like a cold open episode 0 or something if we want. And also it might be fun to go back and redo Living Daylights later if we ever want to, because that's so far really good. But we'll definitely bring up that movie when we talk about this week's, which is Diamonds Are Forever. So it was a quick intro for Diamonds Are Forever, infamously regarded as probably one of the worst Bond movies, but it still holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts. I know this is actually the first one my dad saw in theaters. He went with his dad when he was like 9 years old or something like that. Is that when? I don't know if that matches up, but
is this right after On Her Majesty's Secret Service? Is it directly following that one?
Yeah. So this movie is really weird because basically Bond movies started in the 60s with Sean Connery playing James Bond, with Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, where it really started to take off. Then you had Thunderball and You Only Live Twice. So Sean Connery played Bond 5 times in the 60s, and it was an international sensation. And after You Only Live Twice, he had such a terrible time shooting in Japan, had this really grueling schedule, people harassing him for being Bond. And the producers of these movies were not being very good, reportedly, about contracts and paying him fairly, which I kind of probably can believe. Reading some of the other stuff that, like, I have some other trivia about the way that they treated some of the other people involved in these movies. So I can see that that's probably a realistic thing. But so Connery ended up leaving after You Only Live Twice. the next movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, they decided to change James Bond to George Lazenby, and he was supposed to play Bond for 7 movies. He was signed contract, I think, for like 7 more movies. And this movie, On Her Majesty's, was the most personal story Bond ever had. He actually like gets married in the movie. He meets the love of his life, comes face to face with his arch enemy for the however many time, Blofeld. And at the end of the movie, the last shot of the movie is his wife getting shot and killed, and Bond holding her dying body in his arms, basically a broken man. The next year, George Lazenby, who played Bond in that movie, decided he wanted to be a hippie and didn't want to be the policeman Bond, which you can see that story if you watch that documentary. And so he leaves being Bond, and they get Connery back for one more movie, which is really strange. It's very tonally weird at the beginning of this, which I think we could start talking about now, because Diamonds Are Forever is this week.
Can I chime in here?
Yeah, please do.
I think this was the best. This is the best intro song of any James Bond movie ever.
I would disagree.
What's the thing with the guy with the cup at the table? The meme. What does this thing say? You know, he's like
Dos Equis guy.
No, like the guy who's like holding a cup of coffee and like at a tent at a college university and says like something. He says something about like Star Wars sucks. Like he says something like "prove me wrong" or something like that.
Steven Crowder. Yeah, it's Steven Crowder. No. He's talking about the Steven Crowder meme. Change my mind.
Change my mind. Okay, so Diamonds Are Forever is the best. People were probably screaming at their radios there.
I would invite
Rick from
you.
Red Deer punching the steering wheel.
I would invite you to rewatch Living Daylights and bask in the glory of that theme song, because that was fantastic.
Who sings this one? Is it Shirley Bassey, this one?
Yeah. This is her second. She originally did Goldfinger, and she would come back and do one more for Moonraker later on.
I think it's the best. It's this amazing song.
It was stuck in my head for days, if not 2 weeks since we last recorded. I couldn't shake it. It's amazing.
The Sam Smith one. Sam Smith one is a force to be reckoned with, though.
I couldn't disagree more. I think that's one of the worst.
The only people who agree with you. The only people who agree with you, Justin, are the people on the Oscar committee. So
they liked it.
Well, it won the Oscar.
Man, it was just the performance. The vocal performance is amazing.
But let's not get distracted. What I want to say about this song, though, Diamonds Are Forever, if you listen to the lyrics, like this woman has gone through some pain, right? Like clearly, like things weren't open in her life, right? Like clearly she has some psychological or she's got some issues going on here.
She's really not a fan of dudes. That's for damn sure.
She loves diamonds, though.
Yeah.
She puts them on her cat.
True. Very true.
I don't know if you guys have seen, but there is actually one of our namesake band, Arctic Monkeys, covered this song at Glastonbury.
I wanted us to cover it with Right on Red.
Did you? Is that one of the things you suggested?
I think so, yeah.
You definitely have the range for that. That's for sure.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe we'll do it for Stu's postponed wedding.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh fuck.
For sure.
Yeah. Who knows when we're going to be able to practice again and all that.
Yeah.
Well, at least Diamonds Are Forever. They'll still be good.
That's very true.
Let's reiterate one more time for anybody out there in the wasteland that we are recording this in quarantine. We've all been pretty much working from home and stuck inside for, what is it now, 3 weeks? 4 weeks?
It's been about a month for me.
Yeah.
I don't think in any other situation we would have decided to do a James Bond podcast.
Very true. But I welcome it as an excuse to watch some movies that I should have watched a long time ago. That's for sure.
I like that what I got to do to you, John, here is that you had never seen a Sean Connery film, and I think I injured you here, that I allowed this one to be the first one, because when you think about Sean Connery, right, people have this image, right, of either young Bond Sean Connery, right, or like Last Crusade, never gets old Sean Connery, right? You got to see him for the first time in the middle, in the kind of pot belly, wearing a wig, right? Like, you know, what is he? How old is he in this movie? He's in his
This is his
50s?
like Charmeleon phase. Like
That was
it's
a
not like he's right in the middle.
I actually had no idea, but you know what? I honestly didn't mind him as Bond. I actually thought he did a damn good job. It was like very like loose and light about it, and it wasn't like too in your face, his performance and stuff like that. I
He
liked it.
definitely seems more relaxed in this one
Yeah.
than I think it's okay. Like I think it's really interesting that we're watching this one first. All I could think when it was over was, I'm glad we got it out of the way. Because there's stuff to like in it, but overall it's just kind of like a badly made movie, and it's hard to watch at some points. But I think if you liked Connery in this, which you should, because he's one of the best parts of it, you'll
Yeah.
love the other ones that he's in. Like the earlier Sean Connery movies he's so freaking charming, it's unbelievable.
It's
Yeah,
literally
I really
only
didn't mind
better. It can't get worse.
Now Connery
And I
actually
didn't-
did
I
come
didn't mind it.
back for one more after later on, but it was a James Bond movie that wasn't made by the company that made all of the other ones, because this guy it's a long story, but this guy basically had the rights to the book Thunderball, but when they made the movie, he like took them to court or something. It's a long story and I have to look at the details again, but he ended up remaking Thunderball in the 80s with Sean Connery, who's like in his like 60s by that point, right? Like maybe not 60s, but he was real old at that point. And it's bad, and so maybe we'll watch that at some point too.
Should we do the summaries? Does everybody have kind of
the summary?
The one sentence summary for this film? Justin, do you have yours?
Yeah. What do you?
No,
what do you think this
I'm gonna
movie's
wing it.
about?
Let me go last again.
Yeah.
Make sure you toss it over to me though. Say, and now Justin, you gotta do me up.
Because you have another tab open, so he's not paying attention.
Okay, let me think about this. You go. I'm gonna toss this over to Alex to start it off.
I think this movie is about James Bond finds out about an illegal diamond smuggling ring and goes to America and learns that America is very silly. Is a very silly place.
Do you know how long a sentence is?
It's a run-on sentence.
Mine is so different from that. Mine is it's like so different. A German man and his clones use voice modulators and weaponized diamonds to threaten the world.
John, I think you're going to be in charge of the taglines, because your tagline was best last time too. So I think that's your job now for this.
I tried really hard. I like thought about it really long. Actually, not really. Scott, you got one?
Yeah. So my tagline or summary here is: Bond is a terrible spy, and it's time America knew. There are so many scenes in this movie where Bond fucks up. And like he's a bad spy. Like all of those things that you enjoy in the earlier ones, where it's like, oh, he's doing these kind of like cool retro spy stuff. No, he sucks in this one. He's bad. I'll leave it there. Justin, do you have yours?
Yeah, we get to find out what the inside of a cremation chamber looks like. Actually,
that was one of the most educational parts of the movie.
I think so too.
I don't think it looks like that. Like it looks like someone just took like a couple barbecue parts and just ran them down the walls.
Oh, I thought you meant kind of in a metaphorical sense that like this movie feels like the inside of a cremation chamber.
That's kind of what it looks like.
I guess. Yeah, I think that like everything in this movie is physically wrong, is like not right, and skewed to make the story work. I think that's my summary. Scorpions killing people in 1 second. Cremation chambers like being able to be opened 10 seconds after
that scorpion thing, dude. The scorpion thing was hands down the worst on-screen death I've ever seen in my life.
You can learn a lot from a scorpion.
There's a lot of bad deaths in this movie.
And at that, I'm gonna keep my video on, but I'm gonna go flip some chicken wings. Still listening.
Nice.
Yeah, there were a ton of terrible deaths. That was probably one of the most egregious things about it. Was just how careless they were with like making it look like people actually died.
What do you mean by that though? Like, do you mean like in terms of the filming, or like the way that they tried to kill people?
Yeah, do you mean like the
no,
acting, or do you mean
the acting,
the
the acting,
mechanism of murder?
the acting, and like the scorpion was kind of just silly and had no point. I mean, I guess it was just a way to like introduce those two guys as like these weird henchmen killer people who I think are in a relationship.
Yeah,
It's
wait,
pretty
can you,
heavily implied, right? That they're
Yeah, like the holding
what,
hands and everything.
yeah, give us your summary of these two gentlemen, their names, kind of what you think's going on
Oh,
with them.
jeez. What was it? Mr. Wint and
Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd.
Mr. Kidd, right? Yeah. I actually didn't mind them as characters. Like I thought they were like pretty unique in the sense that like they were just always in lockstep, literally and like performance wise. Like they finished each other's sentences. They knew exactly what the other one wanted to say. It was like an interesting take on henchmen. Usually it's like this big, strong, dumb, quiet guy. But in this case, it's these two kind of weird, but
And
also
like,
very sinister, like guys who are probably in a relationship and they're just going around literally offing people.
and their whole world seems to revolve around the other guy more than anything, in that they just want to like impress the other guy. Like they're always making these wisecracks to try to make the other one laugh. They're always I have a feeling that the reason they do these elaborate murders is because they're so bored with normal murder that they're just trying to like impress the other dude. It's
Sounds about right. Yeah, it's like they're almost like showing off to each other about like
Yeah.
how crafty and like good at their job they are. But meanwhile, you look at them and you're like, these two aren't murderers. Like they're kind of weird.
and they
they're
both
not
have a
very good at
terrible
their job.
sense of humor, but it's exactly the other guy's sense of humor. So they make each other laugh a lot. I like
All in
Mr.
all,
Wint and Kidd.
Yeah, I didn't mind them at all as characters, to be completely honest. I hated like the acting of the deaths, but that was about it.
Oh, which
They
one
were
is which? 'Cause
they're pretty
there's-
meta.
There's the guy with so they're
You mean
the guy who doesn't have the mustache and the bad hair. I mean, they both have bad hair, but one guy has way worse.
Yeah.
Like the guy with the darker hair, that's Crispin Glover's dad. That's Bruce
I don't know who
Glover.
that is.
Crispin Glover is the dad from Back to the Future.
Oh, that's so cool.
Who would have thought acting ran in that family?
Did it? Did it run in that family?
I don't know.
My favorite
on another note-
line, whether it be sorry, I was gonna say one
No,
last
go ahead.
thing.
Go ahead.
My favorite line from Mr. Gwint and Mr. Kidd was when they're like on the airplane and they're like, she's pretty attractive for a woman. Or something like that.
That whole scene's super weird.
That part, that's when I was like, these guys, like at first they weren't like that ridiculous or whatever, but then he just says that line like in that way. Like it was weird, just the way. Anyway, I love that line. That was amazing. That was the best part of the movie.
I'm with their elaborate murder schemes up until the one of them where it gets like really dumb at the end. Not at the very end, because it's also like a last ditch effort, but we'll get to the tunnel murder, the pipe.
The pipe, yeah, so stupid.
Yeah, that was where this movie finally like kicked me off the train. Like all the way I was like holding on, and by that point I was like, okay, they could have just shot him in Blofeld's lair. Nobody was around. They have complete privacy to murder James Bond, and they instead drive him out to a tube, put him in a tube that's not even buried in the ground, and wait till the next day for them to.
That's when it lost you all the way there.
Yeah, I can suspend disbelief for a lot of this.
Okay, wait. So before we jump to that part, though, should we kind of summarize the plot here? I know we've done kind of the one sentence summary, but like, should we kind of go through what happens in this film?
Yeah, I finally realized why the diamonds were like important. The first watch through, I didn't get it. Like I had completely missed it, and it's like literally one line that actually there's one line that it hinges on. And it's that they use it for like that laser that's up in space. It focuses a laser.
And yeah, so they dropped that in. But to throw in here, because I'm not even sure about this. At the beginning of the film, Sir Donald, right, where we see Bond and M in their first scene together, they go meet Sir Donald. And I first thought that Sir Donald was a member of government. I think he's a private individual who is just involved in the diamond trade.
So this makes more sense. This movie is kind of a weird amalgamation between the book Diamonds Are Forever and trying to force Blofeld and Spectre into it. So like we'll go beat by beat, I think, right? Like we'll talk about the movie as things as as they happen. But this movie follows pretty closely the book. This is one of the books I have read, and like most of the book is about Bond just like putting himself into the diamond smuggling pipeline and following it to America to see who's at the top. The book actually starts with a scorpion out in the desert, and Ian Fleming writes about the scorpion scurrying around and stuff. And then they talk about that part with the dentist who takes the smuggled diamonds from the miners' mouths and like smuggles them to Amsterdam. So that guy who's talking with Bond and M, he's like also from the books, but in the book it's a bit more M and Bond go to his like diamond business, I guess, and he kind of gives them like the lowdown on what's happening with the diamond smuggling. So yeah, it's not super clear. He just seems like it's like, who is this man that they're talking with?
Because it almost seems like Bond is involved in all of this because they're concerned about someone cornering the diamond market, which seems like a weird reason for him to get involved in this. But yeah, they one line.
I rewatched that beginning, like that little meeting that they had a couple times, and like I still couldn't necessarily figure it out. It's okay, there's some smuggling coming out of South Africa. That's no bueno. But the government tolerates a small amount of smuggling, fine. Except the weird thing is that none of the diamonds are actually ending up on the market. So that's the weird part. It's like, I think what they said was, this is bad because either A, they'll release all the diamonds into the market and like completely fuck up like the value, or B, they'll blackmail you forever. Like they have the power to do that. Whoever is hoarding these diamonds has the power to do that, and they'll just blackmail you like forever, because they could just release it into that's what they think is like the no bueno part. And then you realize halfway through the movie that really they're just somehow weaponizing the diamonds.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like then they turn it into like, oh, they're using these to power a laser beam, and it's
that, I mean, it lost me before that, but when I
think
realized
that's my least favorite part about some of the sillier Bond movies, is that they have a cool plot hook of like a real spy thing, and then they turn it into like that.
Yeah, I was super into like following the whole diamond trade. I was like, oh, that's so cool. They do it through a dentist and whatever, and they like send it to this person and that person. I was like, sure.
I really got you hooked.
I was like, whatever, I'll buy it. And then
you go to the dentist, you're just gonna have like a bunch of diamonds in your mouth or something.
I don't know. It kind of makes sense though, right? Because dentists use like diamond tip drills or whatever to like fuck cavities up. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that like there are diamonds involved in dentistry tools. So I was like, there's a bit.
Yeah, the dentists have a cut. They get a cut at the time.
I don't fucking know, but no, it definitely lost me. When did it lose me? It lost me honestly when he broke into when he got into like the compound. I know I'm getting ahead of this, but
when he
like that was one of my favorite.
The building?
No, before that. When he hops into the van, in the desert.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. There's a lot.
The scene in that compound is one of my favorites, but after that, it completely lost me.
Justin, you liked the scene with Moneypenny there?
I'm mixing it up with the scene from The Living Daylights. What was this Moneypenny scene? See, that's the Moneypennies all blend together. The same thing happens.
In this one, she's there after Amsterdam when he's leaving, and she hands him his travel documents. She's only in it for like one brief scene. She's undercover as like a border agent for some reason.
She gives him a passport, and he drives off.
She takes Frank's passport and hands it to Bond.
Yeah, no, I wish I had more to say, but I can't even remember that scene properly. Was that when
it's because you messaged it? Like Moneypenny is nothing compared to the other one or something.
Oh yeah, okay. Something. See, I even forgot that.
Right,
but that was when he was coming. He was coming back in the airport, and then there was the coffin with the body with the diamonds in it. That time, right?
No.
This is when she was driving. Oh, okay.
This is before he goes.
It was
to
when
Holland.
he got the Frank's. No, he got the Frank's passport when he killed Frank's.
No. She
got it first. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I find it weird that they use his body to like
smuggle the diamonds back.
Yeah,
they don't. Okay, so you guys missed this. Okay, because there's one when Bond is in. So to jump forward here, when Bond is in the hot
fake, right?
Yeah, when Bond is in the hot tub, he gets a phone call, or he calls Felix Leiter, and says like, "Okay, bring the diamonds." because Q flew them in on another plane. Okay, and it's said so quickly on the phone call, right, that you almost miss it because the diamonds were not in the bottle.
That's why they were all complaining about them being fake.
Yeah,
I thought they were fake because I thought he actually gave them diamonds. Anyway, I have some notes about that scene with the diamond guy in M. But before that, there's the cold open, which I don't like this cold open very much. It's like the thing that happens before the song, and it's like Bond is in a cave and meets Blofeld and kills him in like a mud bath or something.
you're just gonna skip over the like horrible sound, like, where's Blofeld? Where is he? Like,
That and like the guy, there's one guy like gets thrown through a window or something and he slides into a wall, but it's so clearly reversed. Like the footage is so clearly reversed. He stops like perfectly at the wall.
You think they just pull him away and they reverse the footage?
Yeah, that's 100% what they did. If you rewatch the first like 30 seconds, you'll know the exact person I'm talking about. Like, do it after we're done recording. It's absolutely hilarious. Like, it's so clearly faked, and like so many of the special effects are just god awful. Even for the time, it's just bad.
So, Alex, I apologize. I had to bring that up. You were saying Blofeld is creating his lookalikes.
Well, we don't know that yet. He actually tells Bond, but Bond kind of writes it off, right? Bond, he's like, "Oh, one more day, and he would have looked just like me." And Bond's like, "Whatever, I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah, that's actually a cool bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I realized the second watch, I'm like, oh yeah, there's like a whole thing. They alluded to the whole like disguise thing early on.
But he's not cloning himself. He's
making lookalikes.
Yeah, he's getting henchmen to like plastic surgically look like. It's really kind of weird and gross. It makes me really uncomfortable in a way these movies don't usually. That mud, apparently they used, I saw this on the trivia on IMDb, that they used like mashed potatoes to replicate the mud. And what they didn't realize was that after like 3 days of shooting under really hot lights, mashed potatoes smell really, really bad.
I can't believe they kept it for multiple days.
Yeah. Well, you don't think
like how many
used the whole budget on Connery's salary.
Everyone saw that Sean Connery somersault though, eh? That was great.
Oh my god, I have a note about that. It was so unnecessary.
There's some good mutton chops on the bad guys in this scene.
There sure are, yeah. Each one of them.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, and then Bond.
The camera work was just so no bueno in this whole thing. The camera work, the effects, a lot of the acting was just. Oh, jeez.
I think John, you're right, and I knew you would especially notice this because a lot of these movies are not made very well, but this one in particular has really bad editing, really bad sound design, like almost no sound design whatsoever. Yeah. And the cinematography, like everything is gray and weird and just not like pretty to look at a lot of the time.
I found it was either always just like some static, like medium wide tripod shot or like a very shaky handheld shot because they realized they were missing it later and didn't have equipment or something weird like that.
Yeah.
Like it felt almost like a really old, like early 1900s movie, but shot with like proper cameras of the time. Just like, I don't know.
It's like they didn't know how to do it. And it's Vegas in the 60s. It looks great. It should look great. And they just shot it so badly.
There were a couple cool shots though. They were in the car chase, and then during the moon buggy chase, which I'm sure everybody's gonna want to talk about. But there's this one shot where they have the camera attached to the side of the car, which I feel like must have been like one of the first times in movie, maybe like recent or something. It was a really cool shot where the camera's on the side of the moon buggy, and you can see kind of all the people chasing from behind, and it's a cool shot. But then everything else is 3 day old mashed potatoes
and medium wide tripod lameness.
Even speaking of Vegas, like I find I'll get lost in these movies because they don't have really good establishing shots of like where they are.
Yeah, that's a big problem with this one.
It's like they jump around the globe so much to begin with in James Bond movies. You really gotta like set it up, like make it fucking obvious.
Does anybody know what the situation is in Las Vegas at this point? Is it still, there's no big buildings, and that's why Mr. White's building is kind of cool because it's like one of the megaplexes on the strip?
And at this point, the strip doesn't actually exist at this point. Like Vegas for a lot of it. Like when you
Really?
when you went, did you go near like where old Vegas was, like near the Golden
Fremont Street.
Yeah.
No, we didn't go to Fremont Street, but that's I think when we see like the main casino shots here, I think it's all on Fremont Street, right?
Yeah, none of the stuff like the big giant casinos that are skyscrapers,
Except
they're
Mr.
not
White's.
really there. Except Mr. White's. Yeah, his is kind of the main. It's supposed to be that kind of impending huge tower.
Why do Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd need to blow up the helicopter? So they kill the dentist, but why do they need to blow the helicopter up? Does anybody know? They say to the helicopter pilot at the beginning of the movie, they say, "Oh, the dentist wasn't able to make it, but he wanted you to have this, right? And inside is a bomb, right?" And then you see a horrible like explosion that looks totally fake.
Oh yeah, you just see
But,
the
like,
explosion and you don't see anything
why?
of the helicopter coming on.
Yeah.
It just
Why?
disintegrates.
Why did they need to blow up the helicopter? I didn't get it.
It's true. Like they already killed the middleman who was giving the case. They might as well just give him the case to the helicopter and let it buy some time. He gets to his destination.
Yeah,
yada. I guess.
I think they just like killing. I think these guys
They're
just
just
like to
nuts.
kill people. They killed the old lady too.
You're telling me these guys are murderers?
It just seems so nonsensical. Like it didn't accomplish anything. If anything, they're like making it harder to smuggle diamonds in, which is weird because they seemingly need diamonds.
I remember that scene in the book, and I can't remember what happened. I can't remember if they blew it up or not. I don't think they did.
So,
They just killed the middleman.
I have an idea here. You guys tell me if this makes sense. Is this Blofeld essentially kind of cleaning up, right, the situation? Like he's having all these people killed, so that they're kind of out of the picture.
It doesn't really make sense why they would get rid of loyal pieces of their chain. Like it does. Those people are highly effective at smuggling diamonds for them, and it doesn't really
That
make
guy
any
was
sense.
a great dentist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like they just needed people to murder in order to like make them look like a credible threat to James Bond. I don't know.
Speaking of that chain, later in the chain, the old lady, how they killed the old lady.
Yeah, like
When they
just
drown her, and all of the students see it. That was cruel, man.
Yeah, that was
Like,
How did they?
they drowned her in the river, and then, or maybe you guys didn't catch that part. They're pulling a body out of the river, and then Mr. Kidd, Mr. Wynn were like licking an ice cream cone, holding hands.
Oh, in Amsterdam.
That was the teacher. Yeah.
Why did they bring her to Amsterdam?
And then all the kids from her class were on the dock and watching.
Okay. And he's making
I don't know.
joke.
They were just children. I couldn't tell.
It wasn't from her class. She was teaching in South Africa. Like she's teaching.
Yeah, but then why would they bring her to Amsterdam?
Scene changes, man.
But she's
okay. So the dead lady in the water was not that lady.
Yeah,
that
it was that lady.
Her.
Yeah,
it's just very strange because she was saying like, "Oh, you better take some pictures for me in Amsterdam." But then she's the one in Amsterdam who's dead with the diamonds. So it kind of like didn't really make sense.
Well, I think they still wanted to use her to get the diamonds into Amsterdam, but then once they got there, right, they wanted to take care of her.
Right, but then why was she telling them to take pictures from Amsterdam? Because when they walked in, she's like, "Where to next?" I guess that was just like code.
You see now.
This is an example. This is another example of three educated people intently watching a movie. Some of us multiple times, and we still don't grasp the main plot points of this movie.
Wow. I think that's a common thread with James Bond.
Open to many different interpretations.
Let's say that lady was the lady's twin. She was a twin, and she got killed in the round.
Sure.
So then what do people think of Tiffany Case? So Bond gets to Amsterdam.
Well, just really quick before we go to Tiffany Case, I wanted to go back to the scene where they're talking with M and the Diamond Guy, because first of all, I love when they call him Commander Bond. It's one of my favorite things in the movies when he enters a room and they're like Commander Bond, and it's just like.
Or they say, "We still work when you're not here, Commander," or something. Like
yeah, he's like he's like, "We do function in your absence, Bond."
That's it. Yeah.
He's just going around the world.
There's
people.
Another scene of Bond being a wine snob, because he says they ask him something about. I was referring to the original vintage on which the sherry is based.
Okay.
Okay.
No, but M, come on, wait. So yes, Bond is being a snob, but like M is a horrible boss there. He's just trying to, just like, oh, you're not an expert on this, Bond? Like, he's just going after him at every corner.
I think that Bond had to study it. Like, he had to show up knowing everything about diamonds. I think M was quizzing him.
He's
Like,
bored by
they
the
often start
diamonds.
like that.
At the
Like,
very beginning,
hey,
he's
like,
looking
did you
at-
figure out, like, did you do your homework type thing? And then he like shows up. Like,
Bond
He
just
does.
spending- Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say he does sound bored when he's explaining the diamonds, and you could tell like M is doing a good job of acting like we're so tired of your fucking like laissez-faire attitude, and like that whole conversation is riddled with this like passive aggressive, like we still function in your absence, Commander type thing.
These old
You just
movies with
tell that
Connery are great for that because M and Bond have this like rapport where Bond is obviously this like kind of schoolboy and M is like really frustrated by him, but at the same time they have like this crazy respect for each other.
Yeah,
Justin,
they're both
did you read Moonraker?
yeah.
Okay, so the scene where they go to Blades at the beginning of Moonraker, the book, they go to M's Gentleman's Club because one of
Is
the
that where
guys
he plays bridge?
yeah, he plays bridge, but the guy there, M suspects him of cheating, and he
Yeah,
knows
yeah,
that
at
Bond
bridge.
is so good at bridge that he can out cheat the cheater. So, and he brings Bond to the club, but that is one of my favorite scenes in it all because they have this great like back and forth, and they're kind of outside of the office being buds with each other. They don't have to keep up the charade of their position. It's cool.
I'd love to see that in a recent one. Bond, Daniel Craig just being amazing at bridge.
Do you remember how the guy was cheating? Do you remember how he was the Virgin Galactic? What's that guy's name? That billionaire there.
Richard Branson. He's basically Richard Branson.
Yeah, he's like a douchebag Richard Branson.
Yeah, he's this.
Do you remember
playboy
how he
who-
was cheating?
I don't remember exactly. It was clever though, wasn't it?
He had his like I think it was like a lighter or something like reflective, and he
Ugh.
put it on the table, and he would always deal, and so he would see the reflection of like the card in his glass in his mirrored lighter every time he dealt, so he would know what card everyone had through like the reflection.
That's a great. It's such a good. If you read any of the books, that one's pretty good. I would read Moonraker. It's nothing like the
cheating
movie.
PSA. And when you cheat at bridge out there,
Take a
do
reflective.
it the Richard
lighter.
Branson way.
Okay, so now we're in Amsterdam. We took the hovercraft there.
Holland. We have to go to Holland.
Oh, so he goes to Tiffany K. I like this part because I love when Bond actually does spy stuff, which is rare.
like the fingertip, the like fake fingerprint.
And going undercover, like they intercept Peter Franks. Bond pretends to be him, and he
And he
goes-
even, I don't know if you noticed, but he even introduces himself as Peter Franks, like he would introduce himself as Bond.
does he
goes,
say Franks, Peter Franks?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Franks. Pizza Franks. He says pizza in a very Sean Connery way.
Is he Irish or Scottish?
He's Scottish.
He's Scottish, eh? Okay.
So
Okay,
we're
so-
at Tiffany Case's apartment, who I think she's pretty cool actually at this point. Like she seems like she knows what's happening with the pipeline. Like later in this movie, she gets really annoying and she becomes largely ineffective later in the movie. But at this point, she's actually like kind of not like she's different than the other Bond girls have been because she has a key plot in the villain's kind of system.
I thought she was a bad guy at first. Like I thought she was one of the villains or something when I was first watching. But it turns out to be more like it kind of almost feels like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of situation at first.
She's not a spy.
She's not a spy, but she like can uncover fingerprints and kind of play a role if she needs to. Not a spy.
Can we talk about that? About how she goes to her closet with his fingerprints and she puts them on a slide, and then in her closet is two screens, like such plot helpers. Like, how
No,
do
that's
these
like
things exist?
That's like the technology, right? She doesn't have a digital like, oh, this is the same thing. She has to do like, looks the same to me.
Yeah, but
And
like
at the
she
time,
could've just
people
looked
would've-
in like a scope at each of them. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
she had to have a compute like
two
a
flat screens. in their
Is she gonna-
closet.
Is Tiffany Case gonna wear reading glasses? I don't think so. Make it big.
Oh my god!
At
I
that
just
point,
remember
people
thinking,
watching
that's
this-
so freaking.
people watching this would have been like, oh my God, Bond's found out. She has a fingerprint thing.
That's 100% what I thought. I was like, oh well, already. And then, like you said, he actually does spy stuff. He had planned ahead for this, which is one of the things I really like about at least this Bond compared to Dalton's Bond, is that Connery in this movie, or the way that they've written Bond, always seems to be like 2 or 3 steps ahead. I know, Scott, you said or Justin, one of you or both of you said he's a terrible spy and just is awful. But at least at some points, like, he kind of tries to hold all the cards and tries to drive the scheme, so to speak, like having the fake diamonds, having the fake fingerprints. He's kind of one or 2 steps ahead of everyone.
I totally agree with that. It just seems to me, especially in the physical altercations, that I think he loses almost every fight, or like bumbles it in some way. Because when in this next scene, after Tiffany Case, when he fights Peter Franks, he messes up in the elevator because his first punch to Peter, he throws his arm back and breaks the window behind him, right? And Peter immediately knows, and that's why the whole fight happens, is because Bond is not aware of his surroundings enough not to throw like a haymaker in an elevator.
Are
It's
you
an awkward
English?
punch too. Oh yeah.
Where's your floor?
And like, dude, Franks like knew immediately, turned around, like blocked immediately. It was
that because he smashes the window.
I know.
Right?
I still think
But
it's a
they
cool
slowed it
fight.
down
Like,
enough.
Bond is bad, but I like this fight because it feels very
I like the fight too.
it feels
Yeah.
real in a way the other
Yeah.
fights in this movie don't. Like, this
It's a
fight
good fight.
is I can't believe this fight is in the same movie as that fight with Bambi and Thumper later.
Yeah, when I watched it a second time, I completely skipped through that whole fight because, like, whatever, as hot as those girls could theoretically be, it was such a useless 10 minutes of my life.
I think that I kind of noticed that it's only like that in this movie or these movies with women. Like, there's not a woman in Connery James Bond who is ever better than him or outdoes him.
No,
You know what I mean?
he fucks up the Winton kid and the casino owner guy. When he gives them the fake diamonds, essentially, and like
No.
saves
No, I
himself
meant
from-
I meant like of the women in the movies.
What do you mean?
So you're saying that he also won up a dude
Yeah.
also?
I'm
Oh,
saying
okay,
that
okay.
even at that point, I was like, okay, this is a very different Bond than Dalton, because this wouldn't have happened with Dalton. Dalton seemed to be reacting to everything as it was coming at him, whereas Connery, or at least the way that Bond was written in this movie, he already went in with a plan. He was duping them because he was seeing 2 or 3 steps ahead.
So he kills Peter Franks in the elevator. He drags the body, switches the wallets, and Tiffany Case goes over to the body and says, "Oh my God, you just killed James Bond!" Like, everybody in the world knows who James Bond is.
Did I? Is that good?
And none of these passports have like proper photos attached to them either. Like, I mean, I can see him having like a fake Peter Franks passport with his photo, but having
but
like,
I
a
think
fake James.
He did.
Doesn't
but
she
then-
pull out? Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say like, she doesn't pull out his passport, does she? Or
I
does
think
she
it's
pull
his Playboy Club card. That's what she.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
out? Okay, that makes more sense.
And you know it's James Bond because this is his Playboy card. This is the only piece of identification in his wallet.
Oh my gosh.
It really feels
think
like
that they
they
paid him?
wrote it.
Do you think
What?
they paid the movie for that product placement? Was that product placement?
Oh, maybe.
For Playboy?
I don't think that was meant to be actual Playboy, though. I think that was, or was it?
It does.
I
has
thought it was
logo.
like some gentleman's club. Did it have the rabbit on it?
I think it had the rabbit on it.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
It really just feels like at some points they shot something and they're like, wait, what? How do we make this make sense? Like,
But this is like peak Playboy too, right? Like, people joke about, oh, I read it for the articles, right? Like, this is where like Playboy actually had some interesting writers writing for the magazine, right? So it kind of like peak, but I don't think it's for the magazine. It must be
It
for
was
some
still
weird
like
club.
a classy thing.
When you get one of those branded Visa cards, like one of those Visa cards, like with your favorite hockey team on it. Just can I have the Playboy logo on mine, dude?
You You can just imagine.
Oli's here next to me, and she's not really impressed.
You can just imagine some woman going to dinner with some guy, and she likes him, right? Like she had a great dinner, and she's thinking about the second date. They pays for the dinner with his Playboy credit card, right?
Platinum.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're James Bond.
Am I?
I found that moment really meta. Like they're acknowledging that he is like a superhero now. Like all the criminals in the world know who James Bond is because he spent 6 movies going around telling everybody who he is. So we go to America. We fly on the plane. We see Felix Leiter. Love Felix Leiter. He's great. Got a lot of limbs in this one.
Does he usually not have limbs?
Justin, he's muted.
I'm trying to convince Olia to be like a feature on our podcast and say
that'd be amazing.
We would love a cameo.
I'm working on it now.
Did she watch it with
anyways? Yeah, she watched parts, and I would always look over it and laugh whenever something super slutty was happening. Be like, oh, what the fuck? Like Tiffany Case in her lingerie.
Can we just talk about the James Bond intro and how weird that was, where he walks onto the beach, and that's the reason he introduces himself.
I don't remember him doing this.
It was in the cold open.
Oh, with the woman where he strangles her with the bikini top. Yeah.
Well, he just takes it off like randomly.
No, but he's like has it around her neck.
Oh, does he? Okay. Oh yeah, it's true. He chokes her. Right.
I have a note here.
It was weird.
I have a note here from the cold open that says "mousetrap in jacket," and I don't remember why I wrote that down.
Oh, that's great. It's actually not a bad idea.
Oh yeah, he puts a mousetrap in his jacket. And he's frisking him, and he's like, "Ow, my hand!"
That wasn't a normal mousetrap though. That had like razor blades in it.
That was a man trap.
Sorry, you're gonna ask Justin something before I interrupted. I apologize. I don't remember what it was.
No, it was how many limbs does Felix Leiter have? Can we get a Felix Leiter limb check in this movie?
I think yeah, that's gonna be a recurrent feature. I believe he had all his limbs in this one. In the book, I don't know if the book was before or after. He only loses limbs in Jamaica.
Yeah, have you read Live and Let Die?
Live and Let Die. Is that the one in Harlem?
Yeah, it's the second book, but that's where he gets, in Florida, he gets like all of his body eaten by sharks.
Oh, I thought that was Jamaica, but okay, yeah.
So the Live and Let Die movie uses the Harlem parts, but the Live and Let Die book also has parts in Florida, which they use in License to Kill, which is the sequel to Living Daylights and the only other Timothy Dalton one. So when we watch that, that's when like Felix Leiter gets like his arms and leg eaten off or something. There's actually a Felix Leiter series of comics where he gets a robot arm, which is pretty cool.
Well, put that at the bottom of my reading list.
Yeah,
I have
not really that interested in.
So I'm not sure where we are in the plot necessarily, but I have.
So we're just we're at the airport. We just got to America. But
okay,
we can jump
perfect.
around.
So no. I have my favorite line queued up next to me. But I'm going to wait because it comes just a teeny bit later in the plot. So we're at the airport. This is where we meet Felix.
Yeah, and
I love that scene in the hangar, though I'm still not 100% sure who those 3 like hearse driver guys are.
They're just mobsters. They're just like, because that whole Slumber Incorporated is like a mafia front for diamond smuggling.
Right.
But
those cheesy guys.
They're not kidnapping Bond. Bond means to get taken by those guys because they're part of the chain of smuggling.
And we see them again.
Yeah.
That's where I get confused, is when we see them again at the hotel room. Like, I don't know why they're there. I guess they're just coming because like to kill him or hurt.
No, because he dupes them out with the fake diamonds.
Yeah.
And so they're like, you got to get us these diamonds, and so they follow him to Vegas. At least that's what I think. It was very clear.
Yeah, it's later in the film, but it's because like they're also like Tiffany and them are all on the same side. Tiffany and like the mobster people, so that like they leave, right? They leave the room so that Tiffany can try to convince him to tell her where the diamonds are. Right.
Okay, that makes more sense to me now. Okay, so he lands in the States. You meet Felix. It's a great scene in a hangar. There's a bunch of little puns. You realize that like
Q is there.
What?
Q is there, I think.
Right.
Isn't he?
I
love Q.
I don't think so. I think he follows.
Not in that scene.
A different plane.
Oh, right.
So then Bond heads off to the crematorium.
Slumber Incorporated.
Slumber.
Morton Slumber.
He dupes the guys. They get pissed because he gives them fake diamonds, and then they throw him in a casket, right?
Which is a pretty gruesome way to kill a guy.
Wait,
It's
yeah.
one of the...
Wait, but they don't know that yet, right? Because Bond puts the diamonds, which we don't even know are fake yet, right?
Mhm.
After they cremate the body, he puts those diamonds in like a space
Urn.
for them. But they're in the urn, but they're in like a commemoration space. And another instance of Bond being a bad spy, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd somehow sneak up behind him, do the patented like 70s karate chop to the neck, and knock him out, right? And then they put him in the casket, right? Which I don't think Bond was planning for this part, right?
No, he
and there's
wasn't.
guys in there. And the only reason that he gets pulled out, like you were saying, Justin, apparently you can just yank people out of a crematorium.
And like, you don't get incinerated immediately. Like, it was like 15 seconds, 20 seconds. He's just like, oh, like, it's not even getting warm in here. Like, might as well light a cigarette.
They opted for a good casket, okay?
And this leads to my favorite line in the whole movie. When James suddenly sees the casket open to, I don't remember his name, Tree or something, he says,
Dirty double-crossing,
I don't know if you heard that, but
Double-crossing phonies are saying diamonds are phonies.
my favorite line in the whole movie. I just didn't expect it from this old guy who looks almost dead.
So that is Shady Tree, right? And he is part of the diamond smuggling ring because he grabs the diamonds that Bond left in that ceremonial place in the urn, and but Bond does not know yet who that man is.
Yeah, he just sees the casket open. He's I'm
Yeah.
saved, and then gets greeted with.
He actually
like,
says, when he opens the casket, he says, "Don't tell me, you're St. Peter."
Cool as a fucking cucumber.
Oh my god! I think that you know, in the movie Snatch, you know, the guy, the American guy, the American Jewish guy, who goes over to England, and he says anything we he's like, yeah, don't go in England. Yeah, I think Addy was like based on Shady Tree.
Oh, really?
That character.
That's amazing.
Oh no, I'm just saying I think so. I'm not saying that.
Oh, you think? Oh, okay, I thought you actually.
Shady Tree, you mean like the vaudeville comedy guy in Shady Tree?
Yeah, the guy who said that quote about, "Oh, you damn limey phony."
That's not him. That's a guy who just looks like him.
What?
Shady
Okay,
Tree is a different
never mind.
character. I'm pretty sure. It's
No,
I
no,
thought the same
guy,
thing.
same guy.
Same guy.
Shady Tree was the comic. Yeah.
Yeah, because you see the picture in the magazine or the Las Vegas magazine, and that's how he follows him to the hotel or whatever.
Then who's the guy at the end who takes a shot at him after the fight with Bambi and Thumper?
Oh, I don't remember his name, but it was not Shady Tree.
Oh, okay, that wasn't Shady.
It was-
All right.
No.
No, because Shady Tree dies. Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd kill him.
Yeah. Well,
It's some other guy. I really don't know how he factors into the story. I just know that there's a weird line with White. He's like, tell him he's fired after like Bond shoots him. It's very strange. Anyway, I just wanted to share my favorite line with you guys.
No, it's definitely memorable.
Definitely a good line.
You've been a lousy audience.
Yeah, that guy. Why do we have to watch the whole comedy routine of this guy? Like, is it funny? Right?
I think it was funny at the time. I think that was like peak stand-up comedy for people in 1971.
Insulting the audience.
Yeah, they thought it was
I
so
guess
funny.
it's
They're
still
like, "Oh
true.
my god, he's supposed to be nice to us because we're the audience, but it's funny because he told us we're lousy."
He reminds me of that Andy Kaufman character. You know, the guy with the slicked hair. What's his name?
Oh man,
the
Yes.
performer that Andy Kaufman does. The guy reminds me of him. Just
know
like
exactly who you
yucky and
mean.
just
It's
like insulting everyone.
but that's what
Like, you
that's
can
based
shut
off
up.
of. That's based off of that kind of stand-up guy from back then. It was
Yeah,
weird.
exactly. Scott and John, you know what I'm talking about? Andy
No,
Kaufman.
I have no clue. I know who Andy Kaufman is,
okay.
but I don't
Scott,
know
you've
who-
never seen Andy Kaufman, like Man on the Moon or anything?
No.
I'll have to show you some of the old Andy Kaufman stuff.
Homework. Andy Kaufman is the funniest comedian of all time.
Yeah.
And he's
He's a lot like this guy.
Change my mind.
no, he's like Tim and Eric. are completely like inspired 100% by Andy Kaufman.
Andy
Like,
Kaufman was
their
very
main root.
meta comedy before. Yeah.
Okay.
He's like the Led Zeppelin of that.
Yeah.
Who?
Shady.
Anyway,
shady.
sorry.
Okay.
I'm fucking pulling it away
Justin
from
got real
history.
Italian there with the hand gesture.
So now we're in Vegas. Bond is casinoing. He plays. What's he playing at the table?
Perhaps.
Yeah, he's playing craps. He meets Plenty O'Toole.
Plenty O'Toole.
Blow up your pants.
Yeah.
Her audio is terrible. I was watching this with Julia, and Julia thought she sounded like a video game narrator.
She's dubbed completely.
Like, you've played this game before.
She's completely dubbed. She was completely her voice is like, you know how in Goldfinger they would redo all the voices for the women? Like basically all of these old movies have completely dubbed over all of the female character voices, and she's no exception.
That's
Why?
hilarious.
I don't know why.
They probably just assumed women couldn't act or something. This movie is rife with sexism and racism.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the race. Okay, we haven't even gone to racism. This
The
movie
circus,
has serious
the circus
problems.
part,
The what is it? It's that
the
tent.
gorilla
where
in
it's
the
like-
cage.
Oh my god, that was a point where Emily.
Oh, the transformation.
Transformation.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Dude, that was Ian Fleming. Ian Fleming probably was like, guys, okay, you can make the movie, but you have to have this scene in it.
He was dead by this point.
And they're like, fine, Ian.
Is that in the book?
Ian Fleming was dead by this point. I don't remember.
No,
I
I don't
didn't
think it was
actually
in the
finish
book, but-
Diamonds Are Forever. I don't think.
That was
When did Ian
Like,
Fleming die?
actually insane.
He
how can
died
you-
right after
Second movie? First?
second or third.
Scott's Googling something right now.
I
He got
feel
all
like,
up close there.
because Diamonds Are Forever. So it comes out in 1971, right? And there's some civil rights stuff going on in the U.S. at this point, right? And they dropped this. They of all the things in this movie they could have cut, they didn't want to cut this. It doesn't add anything. It's so bizarre.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was bad.
Yeah. There's a lot of
The
stuff
book-
that
the
you
book
can
was
you can
worse.
kind of turn an eye to and be like, oh, it was a different time. But that's one where it's like, oh no.
Well, there's some sexist comments, especially later on, on the oil rig thing.
Yeah.
Something about she's got a lot of buns if only they were brains or something like that. Or, I don't know, something weird like that. But
Or when she switched the tapes again, what did he call her?
He calls her a
twat.
stupid twit.
A stupid twit.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that's what he calls her, which is like
Yikes.
Yikes.
it's
It's a yikes, bro.
And he was actually pissed too. He was like, "What,
Dude, yeah,
stupid twit?"
Bro, he slapped her. He just fucking straight up slaps her in the face at one point. She won't
Talking about
tell.
Bond.
He's like, "Oh,
About
I got
Bond.
knocked out."
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
all
in
messed
Vegas.
up,
In
but
Vegas, he slaps her in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Just like he
Yeah,
just
yeah.
backhands. It's
Yeah.
really bad.
And it's all good. No worries.
Well, because he's
I think she apologizes when he does that. I think he hits her in the hotel room. She's like, "I'm sorry" or something, and it's just it's gross.
So Bond takes Plenty up to his room, but then the henchmen throw Plenty out of the window, and Bond then gets into bed with Tiffany Case, who tries to trick him into helping her with the diamonds, which Bond agrees to, but he knows what she's doing, right?
Yeah.
And then we cut to the next day, where Bond and Felix Leiter and a bunch of people are going to try to follow whoever she brings the diamonds to. So they decide to use the real diamonds. I'm not sure why. They could have just used fake ones again, because she's not going to check them or anything. But they used the real diamonds.
But does he use the real diamonds? Because she followed the whole plan. She got the little stuffed teddy bear, all this shit. But she said something about you made me wait around for 2 hours, and I didn't even get any diamonds or some diamonds that weren't even there. Or something.
She
said
brings them to the
there
airport.
wasn't though.
Well, I actually think that this part with her story is interesting because she basically gets caught, right? Because she's a criminal and she gets kind of caught, and she's now forced to work with the CIA to mitigate the damage it's going to do to her, right?
Not yet.
I thought
He's talking
because
about at
Leiter's
the
in on it.
circus. He's talking about at the circus.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. She's,
When
That's later that they like have her under. They like lock her in
Oh
the
yeah,
room.
you're right. I didn't take
He's
many
talking
notes at this
about-
part for some reason.
He's talking about when she goes, "Darling, where would I find these diamonds?" And he goes, when's the last time you went to the circus?"
Oh yeah, that's right.
So then, yeah, Bond and Leiter are up in like the like head office area.
Oh,
and
that's right. And she goes to the blackjack table, and the guy gives her the thing that's like, "Why don't you go play slots or whatever?" I forget.
Go play with the water guns, and then there's that
Oh, yeah.
great little boy, right?
Oh God. Hey, I was watching hers.
Okay, pull up your
It's
pants.
rigged.
But that's where we have the like horribly racist like scene. But she eludes Felix Leiter and them and escapes.
She escapes with the stuffed animal, but
which she takes to the airport. And leaves in that storage locker, which then the guy in the van, because we cut to McCarran Airport, right? And the guy, some guy takes it out of the storage locker and brings it to what is the WW guy, whatever his name is?
Willard White.
Brings it to Willard White's like secondhand man who drives the van. And then the next scene there is we have the gas station, which is a totally weird scene.
But then after the circus scene, when Bond magically appears at Tiffany's place or house or whatever, like basically she escapes the circus. I don't know if it cuts to the airport. I must have missed that part. But I remember Bond is like sitting by the pool. Tiffany comes home. She's like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Why is my black wig in the pool?" And it ends up being O'Toole's body. She says something about you made me wait for 2 hours in the cold at that blackjack table, and not even for any diamonds. Is she just playing him?
Because
I think she's trying to play him. Yeah, sorry. And by the way, the airport scene and the gas station, all that is after this scene.
Okay, the airport scene is after the backyard with the pool and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's just playing him. She's tricking him, pretending like she doesn't have him. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes a lot more sense.
So then they have that they follow the van, which has Bert Saxby or something like that driving it.
That's who gets killed. It was Saxby. It wasn't Tree. He gets shot in the.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Tree was dead too, though, in the dressing room somewhere.
Yeah, Tree got killed earlier, but Alex asked who got shot in the desert.
That guy is Saxby? Okay.
Yeah.
So they go back to Tiffany's house, and the mobsters have killed Plenty O'Toole thinking that it's Tiffany, right?
Yes.
Right. So that scene where she's tied to the cement block underwater, the pool had like a very slight incline, and each scene she had like a rope that she could pull to pull herself up out of the water to breathe before they had to shoot again. And apparently what happened was the brick would very slowly make its way down the incline until one take she like couldn't get up for air, and like she was a professional diver apparently, so she was able to hold her breath, but she actually took some water before they realized it was like what was happening and saved her out of the she almost drowned shooting that scene.
Like you barely see her in the pool. Why couldn't they use it like a doll? It doesn't make any sense.
That's what they decide to shoot realistically. Like
that just goes to show that like how bad, like you made a statement about how bad the production value was, but even like the whole organization and safety of anything.
You're putting people in danger.
Exactly.
There was no regulation back
2020
for stunt people.
At this point in the plot, I think that movies at this time made plots too difficult to grasp on the first watching on purpose, so that people would pay again to see it again in the theater, maybe 2 or 3 times.
See, that's now like a plan.
No,
it's gonna be the Bond movie.
I agree with you though, because that's a similar thing with old video games, right? Is that they were made really difficult on purpose, so that if you went and bought whatever old video game for $120 at the current time price, like it would last you a very long time because it would take a very long time to beat it. So that's an interesting thing to think about with these movies, because you keep thinking like, why is it so complicated? Like why? But if they're trying to get people to go to see the movie more than once, that makes sense to me, because there's so many things in here which are central to the plot, which you only really pick up on a second viewing.
Your video game analogy, I think it's also about like when you would pay a nickel or 25 cents every time you played,
Yeah.
Like you stay in the arcade like playing because it's so hard, and you just like it gets like
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not.
But now you
it's,
just have Netflix. You watch it once, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go watch like How I Met Your Mother or something.
Well, I think they just make it a little bit easier to like digest on the first watch through. But it's like this is the second time where I literally only understood the like main drivers of the plot when I watched it the second time. Super weird.
Okay, so where we are, Bond sneaks into that van, and he's heading towards the facility that seems like a lot of people here enjoy this part of the film.
Well, this scene has one of the dumbest moments, but also one of my favorite moments in the movie, which
Is
is
it the
at
fake moon landing?
that's. Do we even need to talk about that, or can we just
What
like
is going on?
skip it?
What is going on in this facility?
They're
Like, I
faking the
understand that.
fucking moon landing, bro.
Like,
Well, they're
what's
using
going
it
on?
to build the laser.
They're using
Right.
it to build the laser, but also like he was literally on set hiding quote unquote behind a rock at one point, and there was like an astronaut planting a flag. So I think that was like an homage to all the people saying the moon
The
landing,
moon landing was
fake.
fake. Yeah.
Which I honestly, as hilarious and weird and out of place as it was in that fucking movie, I actually really enjoyed that whole sequence. The like getting into the compound, pretending to be Fritz, whatever his name was.
Klaus Hergesheimer.
Klaus Hergesheimer, yeah, my bad.
No, that there's a scene in Doctor No where Bond does something similar, where he kind of like undercovers his way into the villain's lair, and he just kind of puts on a lab coat and walks around, and people are like, "Hey, what are you doing there?" And Bond's like, "I'm not sure," and he walks over to like another part of the room to blend in. And I love this. I love when Bond goes undercover, but he's cocky. So like this, he just walks in the room. He's like, "I'm Klaus Hergesheimer. I'm here to check your levels."
It was
The guy's
even
getting
that. It was
mad at
before
him,
that.
and Bond's just like, "I'm just here to do my job. We're just as important as you, down in level 7." Or
I was gonna say it was before that he sets it up, and I really like the setup. It's like, oh, you must be new here. Like that's just a thing you could say to someone at a big compound, right? And he's like, no, I've been here for 3 years. Sector G. He's like, oh, how are things in Sector G? Like it was just so. It's like shit that I could theoretically use if I wanted to try to sneak in somewhere, you know?
It feels like he's almost trying, like it's almost a joke about how like Americans are so friendly that like you can sneak in anywhere just by being friendly like them. It almost seems like that's the joke.
I could definitely agree with that.
I think there's a
I
lot of
really
this
like
movie
this.
of like kind of making fun of Americans, because this is the only one, or one of the only ones where he goes to America, and one of the only ones where, definitely the only one where the whole thing takes place in America for the majority of it. So.
And yet it still seemed a little bit less caricatured than Living Daylights, where like the only American was this fucking like loud, obnoxious Texan guy with a bunch of guns and shit. Like that was just such a blown out of proportion American
Is it?
character. I mean, no,
And-
but
What is Bond doing in that room? Like, what is he really just doing nothing in there? I know he sees like the tape for like the world's greatest marches, helpful, but like he doesn't take it. He just sees it. So is that the only useful thing that he learns in that room?
well, he sees the diamonds there too, so he gets confirmation that there's like a pile of diamonds at one point on the table. It's a very quick shot, and I'm assuming he went there because I actually don't know why he even got into that van in the first place. I don't
That's
remember.
special. The room was special because of the that spot in the middle of the room. There was a dome. What was that dome for?
I think they were designing the satellite. I think it was the satellite there that they were going to put on the rocket for later.
But yeah, but there's something special about the dome that it was in, and then he went back later and it wasn't there anymore. Oh yeah, I guess it was the rocket that he was like sketching.
Yeah, they must have been designing the satellite that was going up, or part of the satellite, and then when they went back, yeah, they realized that it had already been launched. I think
They went back and Bond had seen it and he was drawing it for them.
Looked like a satellite.
So Bond steals Bond steals a lunar rover and drives it out. And apparently they added the arms onto it because the producers didn't think it looked outrageous enough. So they added those like wiggly arms all over.
Do you think they ran out of money and that's why like the scene that could have actually been kind of cool with a better music is a xylophone?
Bro, it was extremely
I wrote down
cool.
that it sounds like they only had the budget to compose for one instrument in this scene. Like they have like the
What, like someone should take this video and maybe we should do it and post it to the channel. But someone should take this and put the yakety sax song.
It would be a better score. This scene would have been better if it had because Bond chase music is usually really good. There's a lot of really awesome chase scenes, and the music helps so much. And this scene was just this quiet out in the desert.
There's a cool car
What's Yaki
chase.
Slacks, Scott?
You know, you know that one?
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
It's called something else. I can't remember what it's called. It's called something else. But
Benny Hill.
I have a lot of trouble. What's that?
Was it the Benny Hill music, or is that
Benny Hill theme? Yeah, it's the Benny Hill theme. I have a lot of trouble envisioning another Bond movie that has a more outrageous chase scene than someone running away in a Mars land moon rover thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys who have seen more James Bond movies, but I think that's the most outrageous.
That's pretty stupid.
There's some
Yeah.
pretty
Scott,
stupid
can we,
ones though.
Can I make a
Really?
request to Scott that we outro the podcast to that song of the Moonlander song with the xylophone? Can we
Sure.
outro to that song? Can you have that ready?
Well, we'll add it later. We'll add it later.
As my dad would say, call that up.
Oh, it was at this point also that Emily, I have a quote from her watching this movie. She says, I can't believe we've only been watching for an hour. Because this movie's about 1 hour. This is about 1 hour into the movie, and it feels like an eternity has passed.
Yeah, and that's the switch point. Really, is after he leaves the compound. That's when it stops becoming about tracking diamond smuggling, and becomes more about a plot of blowing up the world.
Yeah.
Well, and figuring out what's. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, now the main thing here, at least to my understanding, is we're trying to figure out what's going on with what do I keep forgetting his name? WW. What's his name?
Willard White.
Willard White.
Bond wants to know what's going on with him, and that's why I think he asked Felix, and Felix asked the American government, but they don't want to move on him yet, right? I think it's not clear.
That's
to me.
another part of it.
Because they have the real Willard White. Wait, has Bond met Blofeld yet?
No. This is so. The next thing that happens is we have that car chase, right, in Las Vegas.
Right.
And
this is actually a pretty cool scene. I like
it is,
this car chase.
Yeah.
This car chase, they destroyed so many cars working on this car chase, and they had to actually make an agreement with Ford because they knew they were going to wreck a bunch of cars, and to get enough money for the cars, Ford was like, okay, we'll give you the cars, but Bond has to drive a 71 Mustang. There's some other little fun bits about this scene. When the car turns on its side and goes through that alleyway, the entering the alley and the leaving the alley were shot in different locations, and they didn't realize that in one, the car is up on its right side, and in the other, the car is up on its left side. So that's why in the middle of the alley, they have a shot of Tiffany Case and Bond just in the car, and they just tilt
They roll the camera. Yeah.
Yeah, to give you the impression that somehow they've rotated this car in the space of the alley where there would have been no
That's
space.
the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
It's such terrible continuity.
Well, they could just flip it
I
because
didn't
they have
notice it.
casino
notice it.
signs in the background and stuff.
I didn't notice it. So couldn't they just have reversed the image, just mirrored it? Wouldn't
Well,
that
that's what I
have
mean. Is if they did that, then the signs for the casino in the background would all be backwards.
Okay.
And the driver would be on the wrong side as well.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true or not, but I read this on a forum post because I was looking up in-flight trivia about this scene as well. But I read that 71 Mustang at the time was hard to come by or something, and a guy actually used that scene as reference to restore the underside of it.
Really?
Because you could see the underside of the car really clearly. So I don't know if that's true. It could have just been internet stuff, but it seemed feasible.
That's pretty legit. I would think that the Mustang would be one of the last cars that Bond would actively want to drive. But I guess
he would
when
hate
in
it.
America, it's the best option of the American choices.
It's Tiffany's car, right? They say it's Tiffany Case's car.
It's
Yeah.
bullish and doesn't handle well, but I guess I'll use it.
Isn't this the one he got from the rental agency?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's it.
I think so, because I think he's in it earlier, right? Because they're both in the car, and then he ditches to get in the van, and I think that's the car that he had rented.
Yes.
The
Entirely
one that
possible.
Tiffany was in when she cut him off. When she cut off the gas station dude. Tiffany was driving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Bond was in that car before with her. Okay, so now they're in the hotel, right? And they're locked in the room because the American government doesn't want to yet move, and they're watching them, right? Felix says like, okay, you guys stay put.
The fish couch.
You have the fish couch, and she's under the white fur.
And Bond
Oh,
says,
yeah.
I'm on top of it. And what he really meant was,
he's leaving, and he goes out the window.
Is this where they have the fish bed couch?
Yes, that's right before the scene with Felix. That's where they're on the fish bed, and then Felix comes in and talks to Bond.
This Felix Leiter is in this movie a lot. It's pretty cool. I like Felix Leiter, so it's cool to see him in this movie.
Was he in Living Daylights at all?
Yeah, but it's a different actor in like every movie.
So
Was he in
which
Living
character?
Daylights?
I don't think there was a Felix.
I think he was in it like once.
I feel that the fish bed, like I remember it being like glass and stone.
Yeah,
It
it
didn't
didn't
look very
look comfy at
comfortable.
all.
It did not look comfy.
But she was like reclining in it, like she was like this is the place that I want to hang out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why would you lie?
I chalked it up to a weird
Or-
like 70s thing. That I don't
Yeah.
know. Like you
It's
know how
like
no
a
one has
waterbed,
water
but
beds.
hot.
I was gonna say, you
Yeah,
know
but
how
it's-
no one has water beds anymore. Chalk it up to that kind of thing.
I think because like
John, I
insurance
found a
was
picture of
higher for
Felix.
people with water beds. I think when I did my first insurance like a questionnaire, it's asked me if I had a water bed. That was one of the things. Last question: do you have a water bed? If
What?
so,
Why? Because you could drown, or because you're just more likely to make like reckless decisions in life?
yeah, because it has because it has so much water in it that if that were to rupture, which they always rupture, it would like ruin all your floor and like your downstairs neighbors.
That's
So that was a
hilarious.
Yeah, it'd be a
question in my
disaster.
insurance if I had a water bed. Good thing people don't have them anymore.
Did you mark yes or no?
Well, yeah, no, I don't have a water bed.
When you say do you have a water bed, do you mean do I have two water beds?
Yeah, multiple.
I don't have just one.
In Living Daylights, Felix Leiter was when those two girls kidnap him, and those two like sexy like convertible girls, and then they go out and
Yes.
Felix is wearing this like blue
Yes.
sport jacket thing.
Right.
Yeah, he's in that little like weird van with all the technology stuff, and he just like opens a thing, and there's a bunch of booze, and he like pours.
Felix
Bond
Leiter is
whiskey.
kind
I
of
don't know how-
he's kind of Bond's only like friend. He Bond doesn't really have any other like friends, and every time they meet up on a mission, they have like a nice rapport with each other.
They bro out.
Well,
I
in
don't
this one, it gets a little tense. Like once Bond and Tiffany get locked up in that hotel room, that crazy bridal suite, it gets a little bit tense. He's like, "Yeah, no, you're not leaving."
The bridal
Then
suite
you-
looked terrible. That bridal suite did not look like a nice place to stay.
I don't know. I've been to Vegas, and I would take that room over the room I had. That room was much bigger. Not that I had a bad room. It's just that room was huge. You got to think, okay, maybe we don't like the fish bed, right? But there's probably 2 other beds in here.
They've all got fish
High
in them.
ceilings.
I think that
Okay.
Felix Leiter should have like more of like a calling card in the movies. Because he passes me by. Like if Alex hadn't mentioned that was him in the room with the chicks who kidnapped Bond in Living Daylights, I would have known that was Felix Leiter.
Yeah, he's
He
a
needs
weird
like a
character.
lighter Felix Leiter or like a zoom shot when it's
Let me light
Felix,
that.
like, Felix.
It just like letterboxes the screen and it says like Felix Leiter.
he's like lighting a cigarette or something like that.
He's somewhere weird, right? Because he's not like Moneypenny or M or Q, right? But he's not just a character for the movie. He's like somewhere in between. Like sometimes he's in it, sometimes he's not. So I feel like most people watching this film would go like, oh yeah, the American Spy guy, not like, oh, he has a name.
Yeah, like M and Moneypenny always have a specific point that they show up at. Like M is there at the beginning to
But
give
they
him
look at the
mission.
camera.
Moneypenny is in the office, so you can always tell like, oh, that's M. But Felix kind of shows up at different times, and like you said, there's nothing distinct about him, so you never really know that it's him. He's just the CIA contact that they always use.
Like I like that in a series with so many like consistent themes throughout all of the movies. It's cool that they have one character that's like extremely flexible.
Mhm.
I think the only like consistency is that he's an American spy.
Some of these characters seem pretty flexible. I don't know.
So Bond leaves out
We're
the
getting
window. Bond leaves out the window and spends like 30 real minutes scaling the side of the building, like just in
And like
complete,
again,
in complete
is
silence.
almost a bad spy, right? He almost gets crushed by the elevator.
You think he put on like a tactical suit or something too, right? He like he just goes in his suit and walks outside. And yeah, he doesn't realize how far up the elevator is gonna go. So,
But he's like looking at it like it might crush me, but like, am I gonna make a big deal out of it? Or like, if it crushes me, it crushes me. Like, I'm not gonna like start ducking now. I'm just gonna like look at it and like be
Like,
like,
you could
this might
slide
happen.
for most of it, I thought like, oh, he
Like-
must have looked at the plans to scale this building. Like he knows how to do it. And it was at that point I was like, oh no, he has no idea where he's going. He's just going up like a Super Mario game or something.
So then he sneaks in through like the skylight or whatever to the I cannot remember this guy's name.
Willard White.
Willard White's toilet room, and immediately gets caught.
Yeah, right away. He lands on the golden throne, so to speak.
The toilet
Yeah,
office.
it looked like a throne. It
Looks
like a
like-
big
Yeah. It's a
Toilet
toilet
chair.
office.
Like Willard White has some kind of like IBS or something, and like watches all the security cameras like on the toilet for most of the
That-
day.
it was so weird and like useless. It was I just thought like whoever the fuck this belongs to has some problems.
He references it later.
Does he?
Like later on when they get real Willard White back,
Right.
they're like, "There's a call for you, sir," and he's like, "Give it to me in the John," which I don't know. Maybe all the toilets had phones back then.
Right there, I thought that was a plot device for something to go down between Bond and that other dude. I thought some shit was going to happen where he was in the John, but it seemed like a lie to me. Like, why would you go take a call in the John?
Well, he had a
I
phone
didn't
there.
catch that.
I don't know, that raised my radar there, but it didn't end up like nothing ended up happening. But I was like,
Yeah.
I was tense that whole scene. He was like handling the rocket. I'm like, is he going to spear him with the rocket? Like, what's going on? And nothing happened.
And then the guy goes, "Those are non-active missiles or something, or like not. Those aren't real missiles or something." He said something.
No, that
about
was maybe. But no, that was the first time when he was in there with Blofeld. Blofeld was like,
You're
that
talking about
can
when
be
he's in there
used
with
as a
White.
blunt weapon. And he was like, all right, he put it back down. But the second time, I don't know. It was like he was gonna
Hey,
stab the guy with it.
Dude, I'm telling you, after the circus, everything just got real weird.
Yeah, and
Like-
it blends together like a fever dream.
Yeah.
By this point, I was doing chores.
I was doing chores watching this movie.
It was like oddly enough, it was much easier for me to follow the plot of Living Daylights, and that was a weird and hard plot to follow. But it was like easier for me to follow that.
So,
Living Daylights is hard with the motivations of the characters, but that movie, the plot is fairly straightforward. If you like,
If you pay attention and watch it twice, yeah, for sure.
can someone
Take notes.
someone-
Sparks notes.
can someone explain to me what's going on with the cat? Does the cat here? So when Bond meets Blofeld, and we can talk a little bit more about this scene, but near the end here, there's the two cats, and I think Bond tries to kill one of the cats or something like that because he says
No.
like, "Oh, wrong pussy." And then like it looks at the necklace, right? Are those part of the diamonds, or like what's going on with that?
Emily was convinced that the cat's diamond necklace was like an integral part of the plot, and I don't disagree with her. I just don't know how it was.
Well, because the diamonds are already on the satellite.
Maybe the cat is the last piece of the puzzle.
I have a theory, John. You have to tell me if this was the same as yours, because I think we want to say the same thing. So he's there. There's two Blofelds. He's looking at them. He's trying to figure out which one's which. He kicks the cat, and it jumps to his master.
Yes, that's exactly
Kicks
what
the cat,
happened.
and jumps on Blofeld.
But I
who
only-
shoots Blofeld.
Yeah, but I
But then
only
he's
realized.
like, I have two cats. Yeah,
Yeah, he said.
God, I didn't
I
catch
only-
that at all.
I only caught that on the second watch though. He has a cloned cat. He's not just cloning himself or like getting disguises of himself. He has a cat as well for each.
This
of
cat
these
took a
clones.
mud bath.
And that cat has his master is the fake Blofeld, so that they have a
Yes.
bond. So
Yeah.
when he kicks a fake cat, he knew that might happen,
Yeah, he said he
and he trained
there's
a
a
second
line.
cat.
Yeah, and there's a whole line that explains it too. He goes right idea, and then Bond goes wrong pussy.
Yeah.
None of that made sense to me when I watched it, but it makes perfect sense now that you've
It
explained
made
it.
sense
This
only
fucking
the second
movie.
time I watched it.
That's actually
You
pretty
can't-
genius.
So like Blofeld like knows that Bond's a bit of a cat kicker.
Keep in mind, in the story of James Bond, Blofeld has murdered James Bond's wife in the previous mission. And now Bond is just having a casual conversation with him in his lair. And also he thinks that he's killed him like a year earlier or something. So This is a very weird scene. They have I don't understand why Blofeld just doesn't kill him. I know that that's part of the story of these, but like Blofeld has so many opportunities just to shoot
What do
him
you
right
mean?
here.
What are you talking about? He does kill him. He puts him in the elevator. He knocks him out. He has Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd take him, drive him out to the desert, put him in a pipe, and then the next day when the construction starts, Bond is still asleep, and the construction company picks up the pipe and they lower it into the ground and then they cover it with dirt. And now this pipe, though, it is a pipe section which is connected to other pipes, right? So the Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, though, they are sure that the pipe sealing machine is going to come along and is going to run over James Bond and kill him inside the pipe. And that way, Mr. Bond will be killed. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what you mean by...
That's Commander Bond to you.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by Blofeld not killing him, because there's a fairly detailed plan that has to unfold here.
How could Blofeld know if he was killed too? Like, how can he confirm that kill?
He can't. Mr. Wint and
Go
Kidd
dig up that
succeed-
pipe and check it.
Wint and Kidd
Check the whole
succeed in
kilometer.
killing all of their own people except for James Bond.
Well, that's it. They're so good about killing everyone. They did it so easily, but when it comes to Bond, like they just can't. He's the kryptonite, and I feel like Blofeld just like put them in charge of it, and he's like, I trust them. They're such good killers.
They have so
They're
many
like, no,
private
this-
spaces, and they talk about Willard White's building as never being like nobody's been in there for 5 years. They could just kill Bond there, and nobody's gonna ever know that Bond died in there.
Terrible.
Maybe they know. Maybe they know that he's being watched by the CIA,
Maybe.
and they could get like a warrant or something, and then come in and look for like traces. I don't know.
I feel like they just got
Speaking of
cocky.
what
They clearly like interesting and like difficult ways to kill people, i.e., putting a scorpion down someone's shirt. So I think they just got a little ahead of themselves. You know?
Just trying to
Like,
one up each other. Justin, you were going to say?
I was gonna say that Alex was mentioning how there was like so much beef in the past between Bond and Blofeld, but they didn't make that clear at all in that scene.
No.
Like they didn't reference it. Like you would have to be a Bond fan just to know like what Blofeld did with Bond, what that history is. But in the movie, they're just like he's just like Blofeld.
What?
Like there's no, you don't know.
It's-
Like how would you know like
You
how
killed
deep
my
that
wife.
goes?
Well, but Alex, think about it too. Like, I don't even think like they do kind of recognize it by having him look for Blofeld at the beginning of the film. But like, where is he coming from before the Blofeld scene? He has Tiffany Case like basically naked in his hotel room, right? And before that, he tried to bring Plenty O'Toole to his room. So it's kind of weird for him to show up in Blofeld's lair, right, and be like, "You killed my wife." Like, well, you know, he's had like a string of women like on
that's
his
true.
feet there, right?
And then-
They're trying to
and then-
brush the last movie under the rug a little bit and be like, yeah, that didn't work out with that guy.
And
Bond
then
still
right after that, he tries to bang White's two assistants, I guess you would call them, Thumper and
Bambi and Thumper.
yeah,
Thumper.
just stupid. Like immediately afterwards, he walks in. They're like, "Can we help you with anything?" He's like, "I have a couple things in mind."
And then they beat him up.
So okay, so after this like ridiculous scene, Bond finds the real like he goes to the real I cannot remember this guy's name. Willard White. He goes to his house, right? They try to find him, which like not sure why they didn't check there. Because it's not even like a different house.
Oh yeah, it's just whose house is it? It's somebody.
It's Willard White's house.
So how are they keeping him there? Are Bambi and Thumper like holding him hostage?
I think so, and I think he's like locked in the basement.
Okay.
No. He knew who they were. He like referenced them
girls.
as his. Yeah.
Yeah, but
he
he's
referenced them-
been out of the public spotlight for 5 years. Like he's not been. Nobody's seen him for 5 years while Blofeld's
know.
been impersonating him.
I don't know if
I guess he
Blofeld-
was like voluntarily hiding almost. I know there was a lock on the door, so I guess maybe he wasn't voluntarily hiding, but he
I think-
referenced Bambi and Thumper as like his, I don't know, his assistants or his
Do you
friends
think
or
that
something.
that was like a witty way of saying like, oh, they're holding me hostage? But
Maybe, possibly.
That's what it
But,
seems like.
Bond fights them, and they have like superhuman strength. But then Bond easily holds them under the pool, and like
They're not good swimmers.
They're just great acrobats and gymnasts.
This is a weird movie where you have two henchman duos. You have Winton Kid, and then you have Bambi and Thumper.
I wouldn't call them henchmen
Bambi's
duos,
friend
though.
in the movie. I was gonna say I think Thumper in the movie Bambi is the rabbit who's Bambi's best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's themed.
Oh,
I just
okay,
I
never
wouldn't
mind. That's nothing new.
I wouldn't I wouldn't consider them a henchman duo though. I think they're just like a random like
They
Sure,
kind of
I
are
mean,
though.
yeah. It was a long fight, but it's the only time you see them.
This was probably the slowest part of the movie for me. Like,
Yeah.
Really?
at this point, it's all been going really slow, but at least like Bond gets trapped in that pipe and stuff, and there's that happening. But this was when I was like, okay, I really want this movie to end now because it's just I don't. Then they go back to the casino after this, and Q is like hacking the slots, and Tiffany Case comes up to me. She's like, "Hi, Mr. Q, are you having
Like,
any
am
luck?"
I gonna get arrested?
Yeah,
Am I
yeah.
going
She
to
was
jail?
so effective earlier in the movie as a criminal mastermind in Amsterdam, and now she's like, "Am I gonna get arrested, Mr. Q?"
So then we have Blofeld escape in drag. Right.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so then, so Willard White finds out that they launched the satellite, but then they lose control because Blofeld seems to take control of it. No disagreements.
Yes. This part was confusing because it seems like Bond just kind of follows Willard White as he checks on all his business things and like gets all the plot information that they didn't have
Yes.
before.
Yes. And then Blofeld blows up nukes in North Dakota, seems like Moscow, and
China.
somewhere in China. And they are, if those are supposed to be nuclear explosions, that I think they are, the laziest thing. Like, why wouldn't you just cut to like some stock footage or something of a nuke going off? Not like, it looks like someone like put a cigarette out on the film cell. Like that, like,
They probably
like
did.
there's supposed to be nukes going off, like, and the ones in either the ones in China or in Russia, they like have them like heat up, like someone like used a crayon on the film, right?
Yeah,
And then
the
That's
submarine.
the laser. The laser's hitting it and heating it red. That's the laser, bro.
No,
Didn't
I
know
know.
how they work.
No, I know. I just mean it looks so stupid.
It really was,
I
dude.
agree.
It's so
But like,
bad.
you know, when you see the horizon, right, the ship or whatever, you see the ocean, the horizon, and when you
Yeah.
have the explosion happening, and then the camera's still moving, but the explosion's stationary.
Yeah.
Like the camera's still jittering, but the explosion is
It's
not
like an
moving,
opposite
so you know.
stabilization.
But there's no excuse for this. This is like bad filmmaking because there's movies before this movie that have decent explosions.
Yeah,
right?
a
Like,
lot of the Bond movies are like, I mean, they're not perfect movies, but they're made better than this. And this movie is just like amateurish in a lot of ways.
for everybody at home, like nukes don't go off like this, right? Like they're made so that they don't just blow up, right? Like a reaction needs to happen. So I know it's a
Yeah.
movie.
It was completely fucked from the get go. Like I was gonna say, like you were saying, Alex, I've seen movies from around that time that have way better effects, way better camera work, way better sound work, which is why it was so weird when I started watching. I'm like, why does this look like a black and white movie but just in color?
It literally
Super
looks like a
weird.
black and white movie in color. Like,
It must
What
have
year
been
is
just,
this?
71.
but like
still.
the earlier Bonds are really colorful and good looking. Like they look like older movies, but they have like vibrant colors. And this movie's just like all.
Did you
faded out.
Did you guys catch what Blofeld's ultimatum is?
No.
Blofeld's ultimatum that he wants from seems like China, the USSR, and the United States is total nuclear disarmment.
Yeah,
which
that
is
was
like-
the whole thing was for world peace.
Yeah, so like
Quote, unquote.
what's his game there? Like why isn't there even like a tiny monologue where, you know, he's like he says that so offhandedly. Is that how he got all those men to work on that nuclear
Yes.
platform?
Yeah, he has one line with Metz after, I think it's after Bond kind of starts escaping. And once, excuse me, and once, I don't know, I guess it's Felix, once everyone comes in to rescue Bond, Blofeld starts like ordering everyone to fire on those planes. And Metz goes like, oh, so you never really cared about world peace, did you? So I think that is how, yeah. Even when Blofeld says it, oh, we can both have our shared goal of total nuclear disarmament. he says it in such a way that it's like, okay, you don't really believe it. He said it in like a maniacal
Okay.
way almost.
He wanted them to disarm so that he could be the nuclear superpower of the
Yeah.
world.
Okay, yeah, because he's pretty quick later when he's like, I don't know, let's blow up Washington D.C. Because they haven't called me back.
Or New York. He goes,
Yeah.
or New York City, we could do without the pollution or something like that.
Yeah.
So are we at the oil rig now? Because
Yeah.
it seemed to me the oil rig appeared very quickly, overstayed its welcome in a really short amount of time, and then like somehow nothing resolved at the oil rig. There was probably
no
my
real
least.
reason.
It's a really bad final act.
Yeah, there is no real reason for it to ever exist.
Why?
It was just arbitrarily chosen to be an oil rig.
I have some information from the Wikipedia page about what they had planned in some of the script writing. If you guys want to hear this, because there's some pretty crazy stuff that they thought about doing at the end of this movie.
I want an answer from you though. What do you think about this plan of dropping Bond in solo in a ball with no weapons? Instead of sending in like the troops or anything like that, which ultimately actually stops it, right? But why? So they send in Bond in an inflatable ball. What do you think? What do you think of that kind of strategy?
I think it was Bond's suggestion. I think Bond wants to kill Blofeld so badly, right? Because of all this beef he's got, that they're like, what do we do? And he's like, just toss me in a silver ball. They're like, are you sure it's suicide? He's like, just toss me in, guys.
I can't die.
And they didn't have any other ideas.
I'm James
so
Bond.
That's my take on that.
I don't understand why Felix Leiter is flying the helicopters, like why he's leading the helicopter attack. Like he seems too valuable and not a soldier. I don't even know why Bond does this kind of stuff. Bond is a spy, not like I don't know.
Because he has people skills, bro.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
This is another scene that could really use any score whatsoever. There's no music at all in this whole, like, or if there is, it's so minimal that there's just, you're watching like images on a screen and nothing is
I think I was on my phone for the majority of this both times I watched through.
Yeah, it's not
it was just so stupid. It was like, okay, it's wrapped up. They just want some explosions and things flying around and like guns firing.
So can I read these just little paragraphs about what they planned? Because you guys are gonna be like, you're gonna feel cheated. This would have been so much better. So Richard Maybaum, who wrote the script, his original idea for the ending was a giant boat chase across Lake Mead, with Blofeld being pursued by Bond and all the Las Vegas casino owners who would be sailing in their private yachts. Bond was to rouse the Allies into action with a spoof of Lord Nelson's famous cry, "Las Vegas expects every man to do his duty." Maybaum was misinformed. There were no Roman galleys or Chinese junks in Las Vegas, and the idea was too expensive to replicate, so it was dropped. Maybaum may have thought the eventual oil rig finale a poor substitute, but it was originally intended to be much more spectacular. Armed frogmen would jump from the helicopters into the sea and attach limpet mines to the rig's legs. This explains why frogmen appear on the movie's poster. Blofeld would have escaped in his bathos sub, and Bond would have pursued him hanging from a weather balloon. The chase would have continued across a salt mine, with the two mortal enemies scrambling over white hills of salt before Blofeld would fall his death in a salt granulator. Permission was not granted by the owners of the salt mine. It also made the sequence too long. Further problems followed when the explosives for the finale were set off too early. Fortunately, a handful of cameras were ready and able to capture the footage.
Because they were so above using fake shitty explosions.
But there's frogmen in the movie poster and they don't appear in the movie and nobody asks any questions.
Yeah.
What a movie, man.
Oh my god. What a fucking movie, boys.
John, you should have directed this movie.
I like the count.
Definitely
the guy
not.
who's just counting down. He's like 2 minutes. I'm
I
counting.
loved his voice. That was amazing. No, I definitely wouldn't have directed this movie, but holy fuck.
Which are the frogmen supposed? Are they like those? Like in the poster, they look almost like reapers, like floating under the helicopters. Is that what a frogman is?
I think it's guys in like diving suits.
They look like
Frogmen,
reapers.
you know,
Like,
frogmen.
great.
Either diving suits or it was the oil rig workers because they have these like gloves on. I'm sure they have like shoes on, so it kind of looks like they have webbed hands.
Okay.
Maybe that's what they're.
Yeah,
to?
that's who it is. Those are the
okay.
frogmen. They're meant to be
it's-
swimming underwater, kind of. Man, if I saw this poster and then I went to see this movie, actually, people at the time friggin' loved this movie. They thought it was incredible.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I'm looking at the satellite right now, and I'm looking at the poster, and I had never realized that that's the satellite, with the diamond at the top.
Are they being held up by the lunar rover's claw?
Yes.
I know for at least half of this movie, I was incredibly pissed off that I thought it had nothing to do with diamonds. Like the second half of the movie, I thought had zero to do with diamonds, and I cannot tell you how rattled I was watching that they pivoted so hard. And only the second time I watched through, I caught that one little line where they're like, "Oh, they're using diamonds to focus the laser," or something weird like that.
It's like a completely different plot, and they just needed to tie in the diamonds into it somehow. It's
so bad. I was so pissed. I was
angry,
angry.
You guys want to know a fun fact about nuclear disarmament?
Yes, always.
I think this is from the podcast 99% Invisible. But you know that the peace sign actually means nuclear disarmament? Because when you do, like, you know, when the Beatles album Help, they're doing Help by like those signs of shipment. Like they're all like doing like this. The peace sign is ND in that signing. Like N is like this and then D is like this.
Oh, cool.
Oh wow.
So the peace sign is nuclear disarmament. Yeah, I guess that's why they had so many people working on this project, because they all wanted to nuclearly disarm the world.
We could have had it if Bond hadn't screwed it up.
Those meddling kids.
Yeah, this movie is almost 50 years old next year. That's crazy to me, actually.
So does anybody else have anything else to say about the oil rig scene?
My last thing on that is the way he is like messing with Blofeld is the weirdest thing. When he has him with the crane and he's just smacking him around.
He's like,
because as far as he knows, that he doesn't know that Tiffany was able to switch the tape back. So like he doesn't know that like it's not going to work. Like,
I don't remember. Again, I was paying so little attention at this point because I was just so angry about the diamonds thing. Like I was so mad by
I was
that.
vacuuming my neighbor's house. I really.
At one point on the oil rig, there's a sign in the background that says, "If in doubt, ask." And I like that. That's just like something. I mean, they probably rented the oil rig for this purpose, but I still like the idea that somebody comes up to Blofeld being like, Mr. Blofeld, sir.
Is this lever supposed to be at 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock? Can't tell.
Okay, so are we done with the shit? So we're going on the cruise now.
Yes, I forgot about this ending scene. I was happy to have this closure with the best characters in the movie, Winton Kid.
Yeah, what happens there again? Again, I was so pissed that I don't remember this now, and I didn't get to it my second watch through. So
Bond and Case go on a cruise.
Sorry. Before we get on that, every time a cruise leaves, is there like a celebration like we see in this movie, or is it because Bond is on this cruise, or is it just because it's 1971 and going on a cruise was like a really amazing thing? Because
it's because of Bond. Like they're all really excited to see Bond.
There's like this massive celebration before the cruise leaves.
It looked like people were leaving for the Navy or something.
I want to get a taste of that champagne when you smash it on the side of the boat.
That's a good point.
Oh, okay, sorry. I needed to ask about that. I'm sorry.
It's true. Like I don't think that happens.
Yeah, unless like people are leaving to go work in the Navy or something.
Well,
like,
I think that they, after Bond saves the world, they put out news articles about it. They say James Bond saves us again, and everybody's saying thank you to James as he goes away on the cruise.
Fucking Superman.
Okay, that makes more sense to me than like the cruise ship like hiring people every time a cruise leaves to like, I'll see you when you get back.
There's some comedian, I think it might be John Mulaney, who has a joke about that, where like in the 1920s, like people had nothing better to do except go see a ship off when it like leaves port or something. So you'd be like, what do you want to do this afternoon? Oh, I'll go see the boat leave and wave at it.
All right, Alex, wrap us up. What happens next?
Oh, well, they're having a romantic dinner. Bond is a wine snob, and Winton Kid, they fight. This is actually a pretty intense fight because the bomb there. I was like, oh, this is another really impractical way of just killing Bond. Like they could just walk into the room and just shoot him. But
the cake. I forgot about the cake. Okay, now I remember it. Yeah,
well, he lights Mr. Kid or Mr. Wint. I don't know which one.
One of them.
Wait, what do you mean?
He lights one of them on fire.
No, he doesn't. He does it to himself. The guy with the flaming what do you call them, sticks or whatever, he picks them up, right? And then lights himself on fire.
Oh yeah.
What? That's
No,
how it goes down?
Yeah, that
Because
guy.
he's soaked in liquor. Bond throws liquor all over him, doesn't
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that's why. I just thought he was
Yeah.
like totally incapable.
he? No, he's Mr. Wint. He's so capable.
I think that's Mr. Kidd, isn't it? Or is he Mr. Wint?
Actually, I think it is Mr. Kidd.
I have a feeling that I have a feeling that they gave Alex the ability to go back in time and change one thing about James Bond, and he did so, and he added in Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd.
It's me in 40 years.
I feel like those are characters that you would design,
100%.
and you would like try to incorporate them with like the comedy of the time, but like they have your stamp on it. Like you design those characters. I know what we
That
do.
is
I'm
the
on to
greatest
you.
compliment anybody's ever given me.
I mean, besides Tiffany Case and Plenty O'Toole, they're my favorite characters.
Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd.
So we have that fight scene. It doesn't go well for them. One of them leaves with his tail between his legs.
Well, he gets kicked, or what? Oh no! Bond pulls his coattails under his legs, and he goes, "Ooh!"
Oh, I so don't remember this.
And
I
then-
for a bomb and a cake.
And then the last scene there, like the very last scene, is Tiffany asking Bond, looking up at the stars, and she says, "Is there any way we can get those diamonds down?" Or something
He
like
is
that.
like all about those diamonds. That's
Yeah,
all
but
she
you know
knows.
what she's getting at, right? Like the ones in the satellite.
Yeah.
Okay, I honestly didn't catch that until I watched the second time through, because I didn't know they were in the fucking satellite.
Oof.
Yeah, it's half the time when I was watching with Julia, we were saying, "Where are the diamonds?" It was very unclear.
It was very unclear, unfortunately. I cannot express how angry I was.
So, John, how would you rate that movie? I don't know, on 5? What would you give it on 5?
Yeah, at most a 2, honestly.
That's generous. Well, I think
I mean-
you could change your score later when we watch more of them.
Yeah, I would rate Living Daylights. I would rate Living Daylights like a 3.5 to 4, just based on the time and like what was available to them and stuff like that, and just Dalton being kind of a weird James Bond, but also kind of lovable. But this like max it too.
I think it's interesting that I mean, I know you'd seen another one, but seeing Living Daylights as kind of your first Bond is interesting because, like, for most of us, I feel like the Bond we like the best is the one that we saw first. Although I like Daniel Craig better.
I
than
saw
Pierce
Casino Royale first, so for me, like Craig is Bond.
Brosnan. Bond. Okay.
But that's kind of who I'm comparing Dalton to. And like
Yeah.
we didn't really talk about Connery as Bond necessarily, but because I think it kind of speaks for himself.
It's also
What?
super weird that you're watching Diamonds Are Forever as your first Connery James Bond. Like that makes no sense at all. it's just wrong
Justin,
that we did this.
Justin, how do you rate this film out of 5? What do you give it?
I give it 2. I give it 2 bags of popcorn out of 5. You guys watch On Cinema?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I also give it a little gadget. I give it 2 bags of popcorn and a little gadget that changes your voice.
It doesn't just change your voice, it changes your accent and your dialect and
Yeah, and it changes
Your
your voice,
vocabulary.
but it's to
We
the
didn't talk
person.
about that
So I'm
earlier.
talking on the phone to Alex, and Alex needs to hear a Scottish accent. So I speak in my normal voice, and my voice out loud to other people is a Scottish accent. But the device is here. How does that work?
But it's like
I'm
he's talking
sucking
in a,
in.
You know,
It's
he's
sucking
talking
in
like a
all the
British
sound.
accent. He's talking in a British
And then
accent.
but
And it becomes Texan. He's like, I'm Will of White, now I'm down on my ranch. And it's like, oh, it's my old boy.
so
Oh my
this
God.
movie to me is just that. That is the whole movie.
I think that was pretty evident in my summary. What did I say? A
Yeah.
German man and his clones use voice modulators and weaponized diamonds to threaten the world. I think that sums it up perfectly, really.
So, Alex, what do you rate this one?
I'm going to give it a million diamonds.
Out of?
Just a million diamonds is how much.
Just one
score.
really big one, Alex. Out of 5.
I'm going to give it a million diamonds and one really racist gorilla. It's so bad. It's
I think
so
if anything shows the age of this film, it's that. It'd be interesting actually to see some reviews from the period if people thought it was racist then.
We definitely actually should include that next time. We should look up some reviews of the time.
So I'm gonna agree with I think about the average here. I give this a 2 out of 5. It's still a movie. So, but definitely not a pass. That's not a pass.
Not a pass.
I'm going to give it a serious score, like being a big fan of James Bond movies, and also being somebody who's very empathetic to them and like able to have rose-tinted glasses about them. This is my least favorite one. I think it's just badly made, and it has some fun stuff to talk about in it, but like it's just,
as a movie it doesn't work properly. Like Scott was saying, it is a movie, like you could kind of follow it and whatever.
It doesn't help me argue for it. The other ones give me something to like advocate for, and this one just doesn't do anything to help me.
The only thing you have is Sean Connery. Like that's pretty much it. Like
All right.
think about a 2 on 5. If you wrote an essay and you got a 2 on 5, that's 40%. Like that's fucking.
I'm giving it lower than that in Bond.
You're giving it lower than it too.
This is like a 15% maybe.
Okay, it's fair.
Any other thoughts on this film before we wrap up?
Just this was a really fun conversation to have about it, but even talking about it has like made me drained in a way that I felt after watching the movie. And like I love these movies, and I thought I liked this one too, and watching it it got worse.
Eating your vegetables.
What?
You're oh, that's sorry. I'm lagging so much. You're eating your vegetables by doing this. You're getting the worst out of the way first.
Yeah,
exactly.
We're gonna have a nice T-bone steak next one.
What should we watch next?
I think this is what we have to do next.
From Russia with Love?
I think we have to decide. Do we continue with another Connery to cleanse the palate and also to get context for Connery? Do we go?
I think we do a Brosnan.
Like Pierce Brosnan or Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Let's do a Brosnan one.
Let's do a Goldeneye. Let's do Goldeneye because I want to base it on like I've never seen Goldeneye, and it's also not a book, and I've played the game so much.
Yeah, I want to compare it to the game as well.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea, because if we want to do a Brosnan, I'd be worried about doing Diamonds Are Forever and then a Brosnan that's not Goldeneye.
Yeah, I feel the same
way. Might end things.
It's got to be one good, one bad.
And the Ice
Die
Dude.
Another Day is another diamond-centric movie, and it's just brutal. All the movies that have diamonds in them are really bad.
Well, I mean, Living Daylights technically had diamonds in them.
Oh shit, you're right. That's
Very
I hidden his ice, man.
That's it.
You're right, and it wasn't bad. Okay, so we're watching Goldeneye for next time?
I'm down.
Sounds
100%.
good.
Cool.
Okay, so someone edit in the xylophone music for Justin here.
Oh, please. All right, so we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. And what's our sign out?
Let's die another day.
Yeah, not today, because we're in quarantine, so we don't want to die today.
Quarantine
Another day.
forever.
No, please no. Any of those are great sign-offs. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Just play
Don't
the
worry
song.
about it.
Just play the thing. Isn't that Nerdist? Play the thing.
Play the song Schneebly.
Roll the thing.
Don't worry about it.
Just
Thanks, everybody.
fucking play it, Scott. Crank it. Crank that xylophone.
Well, we're gonna edit it in.
Yeah, we're not just gonna play it over Scott's
I
speakers.
thought I was gonna be able to enjoy it.
Look up on YouTube.
All right, see you guys next time. See you guys next week. Whatever.
So I told myself I'm gonna go rock star and just see how long this goes. I'm not gonna worry about it. I asked Emily if she wanted to cut it, and she said no, and I said okay.
I can see you with a man.
I'm gonna try to go rock star too.
Oh yeah,
Awkward phase right now. That's why I'm wearing a baseball cap.
I'm gonna try the
And you
beard.
got the AirPods? Fancy.
Oh yeah. Got them for Christmas. Scott knows.
Merry Christmas, there, buddy.
Yeah, with the robe. All right, let's do this. Sorry about that. I was eating tacos. I got home at like 7:30 and I saw your message and I was like, crap.